Dr. Amen, how you doing, my friend?
I am happy today. Happy to talk to you.
I'm super excited. And first of all, I got to say congrats on the book, which I can see slightly behind you. You Happier. When did this book come out?
Actually, it comes out March 22nd. Uh,
Okay,
so brand new,
7 days.
and the world needs it more than ever.
So, what made you decide to write this book?
So when I was thinking about it, I came to realize that because of the pandemic, depression had doubled in children and tripled in adults. And we are the unhappiest we have been since the Great Depression. And now, with the war in Ukraine, it's getting worse. Yet, there is a neuroscience to happiness. And we can be happy even when it seems like the world is crumbling around us. And there are a lot of books on happiness, but none of them have the foundational secret of happiness, which is the physical health of your brain. And none of them have that happiness really needs to be geared to your brain type. And I thought, well, I could be happier, so let's study it.
That is, yeah. I think the brain itself is such a complex bit of machinery. Um, I'm 43 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out. I think I'm way off mark, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I know in the book you'd mentioned that there were different brain types. How many different brain types are there? And how does a person distinguish what they are so that they can work it to the best of their ability?
So at Amen Clinics, I have 10 clinics across the United States. We do brain imaging work. And one of the first lessons I learned was that all psychiatric disorders, anxiety, depression, ADHD, addictions, even overeating, is not based on one pattern in the brain. They all had multiple types. And then as I was thinking about personality, it's like based on brain function, we all have different personality types. And there are five primary types: balanced, most anything will make you happy; spontaneous, you need novelty, you love surprises and hate routine; persistent, where you hate surprises and love routine; sensitive, and the pandemic was just a disaster for them because they need connection; and cautious, which they'll never jump out of an airplane unless it was on fire. And so a lot of books on happiness go, oh, well, we need novelty and we need purpose and we need to laugh. And it's like, no, it depends on the type of brain you have. What make me happy might make my wife miserable. And if I don't know that, I might do things that I think makes her happy and completely mess up the relationship. So knowing your type, and there are combinations of types, which is why there's 16 total types, is just so helpful. And in the book, I give people a link so they can know their type.
Right. Because like yeah, because when you talk about the types, I'm thinking, yeah, there are. I'm thinking, yeah, I might have a few of those. It's not going to be one. So with that information, people will be able to, I guess, make more tailored decisions and understand why they feel a certain way and operate a certain way, and they don't feel confused, I'm assuming.
Well, and the book is based on around these seven secrets and seven questions. And, secret number one is know your brain type because happiness is different for everyone. And the question is, am I doing something today that makes me uniquely happy? And too often people are waiting for the big moments of happiness when they get married, when they have a baby, when they graduate from school, when they get a research award. And it's the wrong way to look at it. It's you want to really, if you want to be happy, you want to look for the micro moments of happiness. It's like, what's the smallest thing today that makes me uniquely happy? And, whether it's with my family or with what I eat or walking in nature, it's one of the things that makes me uniquely happy. And you need to ask yourself every day. And I start the book with this idea that was actually foreign to me before I wrote the book. Happiness is a moral obligation. So I grew up Roman Catholic, went to Catholic school, was an altar boy, and I can guarantee you that idea that happiness is a moral obligation was hiding. It was nowhere to be found. But why do I say that? It's because of how you and your moods affect other people. So if you've ever been raised by an unhappy parent or married to an unhappy spouse or raising an unhappy child, I can guarantee you those people will tell you that happiness is an ethical issue. And so if it's not fluff, it's serious. Well, what helps? And hedonism, which too many people mistake for happiness, hedonism is the enemy of happiness because it wears out your pleasure centers. And ultimately, you need more and more of something in order to feel anything at all. And so many people want fame, but fame is actually bad for the brain. I've been blessed to be Justin Bieber's doctor and Miley Cyrus's doctor, and I can guarantee you that's a tricky thing.
Wow. That's interesting. Have you found, because you've worked with quite a few famous people, have you found that many of them undergo a lot of depression or anxiety? And is there like a commonality between them?
Um, yes. Now, I have a skewed sample of famous people, right? Because it's like the people that come see me
Yeah, yeah, of
are
course.
generally struggling. But secret number 5 is master your mind and gain psychological distance from the noise in your head. And I talk about killing the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness. And the common thought and I've seen multiple gold medal winners, Olympians, I've seen Hall of Fame artists, and their mother thought is, I'm not enough. And I'm like, if you're not enough,
We don't.
nobody's got a chance, right? I've
Yeah.
seen supermodels and I'm not pretty enough. And I'm like, yeah. And, I teach people you never want to be the best because if you are the best, then you have to be better than other people. And that's a prescription for unhappiness. If you want to be your best, that's a prescription for happiness because then you can help other people be their best too. And connection is foundational to happiness if you're human, not so much if you're a polar bear.
That's amazing. That makes so much sense. It really does. That's so cool. I think you also mentioned about the seven neurotransmitters of a happy brain. Could you explain what they are and how they work for each individual?
So they're very interesting. So, when people think of happiness, they think of dopamine. It's the chemical of cocaine. It's what gives you that, oh, I love this. When you just fall in love with someone and you can't stop thinking about them, it's dopamine. It's the molecule of more. It makes you want to do it again. Um, and when we have a dopamine deficit disorder, it often goes along with people who have ADD or ADHD, where they have trouble focusing, they don't follow through, their motivation might not be great or consistent. Uh, so dopamine's very important. And that's why novelty makes a lot of people interested and happy, because when something's new or novel, it increases dopamine. And then there's serotonin, which is the molecule of respect, which is why when we feel disrespected, we can actually get depressed. A lot of the antidepressant medications raise serotonin. Um, and then there's GABA, which sort of calms things down. A lot of people have low levels of GABA. I think of all of them, the most interesting is oxytocin. And oxytocin is the bonding or the cuddle hormone. It's what connects us to other people. It goes up dramatically after you have sex. It goes up after a woman has a baby. It goes up when you hold hands or get eye contact. But oxytocin, like all of these chemicals, have a dark side. And it bonds us to our group, and it makes us afraid of people who are outside of our group. So I actually think it's involved in racism, and it's involved in the political divide that we're experiencing in the US. If you're not part of my group, then I'm afraid of you. And it's chemical. And very few people talk about this or know this. It's why I don't know, the equivalent in the UK would be soccer teams, but in the US, Red Sox fans from Boston hate the Yankees from New York. There's actually a book called Red Sox fans are from Mars, Yankee fans are from Uranus, which is just a funny ploy. But it's like, if you're not part of our group, we don't like you. And this is very important because, I've done work for 30 years outside of the norm for my colleagues. And for a while, a long while, I got rejected from my colleagues. And I understand why people don't innovate, why they don't do new things, because you'll get ostracized. And hell is described by many theologians as separation from God. Hell on earth is separation from your colleagues, because this bonding and connection is what helped us survive as a species. As a group, we can survive the lions and tigers, but it's also why people don't sort of go outside the box, because they worry they'll get rejected.
Well, sorry, what causes people to do that? You said it's something about stem from racism, but I'm just trying to understand, because you do get that, and I'm just wondering, why are people not more welcoming to others in, I don't know, a new workplace? Someone new steps in, for some reason they dislike them. Why? You don't even know this person. Kids are like it quite strongly if someone is there that, I don't know, you can't play with us. Like, why do we do that?
Because of oxytocin. We see them as outside of our group. So think of a mama bear situation, that when you're bonded to your cub and anybody comes in your sphere that you think might be threatening, you become very aggressive. So this is the dark side of oxytocin. We get bonded to the people we're with, and we don't know this. None of this is conscious. we get suspicious of people who are a different color, sometimes a different sex, sometimes you came from the outside. So the chemicals of happiness have a dark side. For example, dopamine can cause you to become addicted. Uh, Serotonin can cause you to get depressed. Uh, there's also endorphins and cortisol, but I just found in my research that oxytocin was so interesting.
It sounds really fascinating, to be honest with you. I'd only ever heard good things about oxytocin, you know.
Right. Yeah, no, me too. And then when I started reading about the dark side, because why? Just because someone is a different color
Yeah.
than you, would we have an opinion when 99.99% of our genetic code is the same? And so you have to ask yourself why, is it cultural? Maybe, but it could also be biological. And I think it just helps me be suspicious of my own motivations. It's like, okay, what's real? And in the book, I talk about how I'm not really a fan of positive thinking. I'm a fan of accurate thinking. And it just helps you question your own motivations.
Yeah. I think some people do try and force it upon themselves, almost lie to themselves to feel a certain way. I think there's so many different versions of that, like fake it till you make it, and just positive affirmations. Just keep saying it over and over and over again until you are convinced, and all that sort of thing. Um, yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I think it's all seven of these big ideas. It's know your brain type. The second one is get your brain right. The physical functioning of your brain's associated with happiness. I did a study on 500 consecutive new patients, Damon clinics. We gave them the Oxford Happiness Questionnaire. And we looked at the brain scans of people who had high levels of happiness and low levels of happiness. And low levels of happiness with lower blood flow to the front part of your brain. And this is why you shouldn't let people hit soccer balls with their head or play tackle football, because you damage the front part of your brain, you damage your ability to be happy. And nobody's talking about brain function. Happiness is a brain function. Get your brain healthy, you're more likely to be happy.
That is really interesting stuff. Really. Mm. Um, what would you say from the scans that you've done on brains? Have you done any where people have with different types of? Oh, okay, let me find a way of how I could word this. Um, with the type of scans that you've done, what drugs have you seen was the worst on a brain?
Inhalants generally, so puffers, people who are inhaling gasoline fumes or organic solvents, really bad for the brain. Opiates are not good for the brain. Alcohol is clearly not a health food. I published a study on 62,000 scans looking at how the brain ages. I think it's the world's largest brain imaging study. And marijuana prematurely aged the brain 3 years. It was one of the worst things. It was actually worse than smoking, worse than alcohol. And, I always get lots of grief when I talk about that, but I don't have a dog in the fight. That's just what the research showed. I'll probably make more money if you smoke pot because you're just more likely to come see me. So it just always triggers people to
Good.
get mad at me, but know the truth. The truth will set you free. Marijuana is not good, especially for developing brains.
What younger, what teenagers or something, or yeah,
Yeah, kids who use marijuana as teenagers in their 20s, they have a higher risk of anxiety, depression, and suicide.
Mm, right, right. I can't wait for people to listen to this. I know so many weed smokers, and they're like, "Oh, it helps me to think. It's good," and I'm like, "It is not. Thank you." And it's one of the worst, you say, yeah?
It's one of the worst as far as prematurely aging the
Premature
brain.
age in the brain. So, what does it mean for if your brain is aging? What does it mean for you in the long term? Like Alzheimer's quicker or anything, or what?
Yes, that you're going to drop words. You're going to have decisions that are not as good as they could be. You'll have a higher risk of dementia. So, and we already, all of us, if you live to 85, um, you have a 50% chance of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. And I'm 67. I hate those odds.
Yeah.
But I can't start thinking about my brain when I'm 82. I need to start thinking about my brain when I'm a teenager if I really want to keep my brain healthy. But whatever your age, now is the time to get serious. And oh, by the way, being happy decreases your risk for dementia. Depression in women doubles the risk for Alzheimer's disease. Depression in men quadruples the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So we're not just talking about, well, it'd be nice to be happier. It's, do you want to save your brain? Being happier is, with the strategies I give, is a good idea.
Are there any kind of technology where you can stimulate certain parts of the brain, like send currents to the brain? Is there any kind of biohack that way where you can put a hat on your head and then be like, okay, let's upgrade the happiness, raise up the serotonin a bit and dopamine, and you just put coordinates in and or whatever, and then just send some signals. Is there a way of doing that? Or maybe even in your clinic, is there a way of superficially creating it without food or
So, yes, there's a lot of technology. A lot of people are thinking about ways to stimulate the brain to treat depression or increase happiness. There's something called transcranial magnetic stimulation using powerful magnetic fields, especially over the left front side of the brain. The left side, for most people, is the happy side of the brain. The right side sees trouble. So that's actually been found to be a treatment for depression. There's also infrared light therapy that has been shown to be stimulating and reparative for brain function. Other technologies like music and neurofeedback can be helpful as well. One of
mm,
my favorite is hyperbaric oxygen because hyperbaric oxygen therapy increases blood flow to the brain.
right? Okay. Okay. I've recently started doing that. I've been, I think, 2 weeks in a row. I think I'll start going a bit more often then. um, why do people go for processed food? Like, what's what if people understand? Well, people might not, but like most people understand that it leaves them feeling a bit crap and it affects their mental state. Um, why do you think people continue to do it even though they feel rubbish? What's going on there in their mind, in their brain?
Well, they're addicted to it. The food companies know how to addict you to foods that are not good for you. You know, it's the sugar and sugar substitutes that they put in it that make it uh, work on the heroin centers of your brain. And so, even though you might not want to, you go back over and over again. I really see the food industry as providing weapons of mass destruction. I actually don't think ISIS has anything on our food industry. That the real weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide sprayed, high glycemic, low fiber food like substances stored in plastic containers. So here in America, we have exported the standard American diet, sad, and 72% of Americans are overweight. 42% of Americans are obese. I published 3 studies that show as your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of your brain goes down, which should scare the fat of anyone. And in secret number 2, I talk about if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. If you're overweight, you automatically have 7 of the 11 risk factors. And secret number 4 is only love food that loves you back, that you're in a relationship with food. And Roger, I don't know if you've ever been in a bad relationship, but I have. I was married for 20 years to somebody who didn't like me very much.
Oh, wow.
And it was awful. And I'm persistent, so that's not always a good thing. And and I'm damn sure not going to do it with food. But I am only going to love food that loves me back, right? I'm married now to my best friend, and we have a great relationship. And when I eat something, I want it to serve my health, not steal from my health.
Yeah. Mm. I read a book called what's it called? The Dorito Effect. Have you read that one?
I've not, but I understand the Dorito effect. They
Why?
hire neuroscientists to get the right crunchiness, the right meltiness, the right saltiness. It triggers the bliss point in your brain, and you just love it. And you want it over and over again. So these foods with the combinations work on dopamine to go, oh, whoa, I like that more.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's, and I talk about in the beginning of the book, the lies of happiness. Like Coca-Cola's slogan is open happiness. And no, that's not what it does. It opens illness. It opens depression. It opens obesity. You open diabetes, but that would be bad marketing, right? I mean, nobody would buy that. Open obesity. Or happy meals. They're not happy meals. They're sad meals. They're chronic illness meals. But you can't talk about that, or people, try to put a hit out on you.
I know. It's crazy. I think I'm very intuitive with the food that I eat, and sometimes if it's a day, I call it sin food. People might call it cheat meals. I'll have a day where I know I'm not eating it for its nutritional value. It's just going to be for fun. But I'm fully aware of if I eat something and shortly afterwards I feel hungry again, and I know I've eaten enough. It still amazes me now. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what's going on here. Just look for an alternative to eat if necessary, or just kind of starve that fake hunger, But it's good. It's good to be aware of it, because a lot of people are not, and they will just kind of follow the signs of eat more, and it's a bit of a spiral there. I just thought I'd share that bit of experience. I also wanted to ask you. I think in your book you mentioned about anything that damages blood vessels also damages the brain. And it starves it from the nutrients it needs. Did you say that? No? Okay, maybe I read that somewhere else.
I don't
Sorry.
know what that is.
Right. So anything that damages blood vessels also starves nutrients of going to the brain, like low flow to the brain. Oh, well, I must have read that somewhere else and maybe wanted
No, I'm
to.
sorry. Something happened in my headphones.
Oh, is it?
Um, yeah, it was ringing, but it wasn't my phone. I don't know what happened. So the question is about blood vessels.
Blood vessels, yeah.
It's a
If
great
it's damaged.
question, Roger, because what I understand is brain cells don't age. It's our blood vessels that age.
Hmm.
And whatever we can do to keep our blood vessels healthy, you want to do it. If you want to not age, you have to exercise. You need to, if you have heart problems or high blood pressure, you have to take care of that. It's absolutely essential. Um, Beets, ginkgo, cayenne pepper, oregano, rosemary have all been shown to help support healthy blood flow. And I read a study that really disturbed me. 40% of 40-year-olds have erectile dysfunction. If you have blood flow problems anywhere, it likely means they're everywhere,
Right.
which means 40% of 40-year-olds have brain dysfunction. 70% of 70-year-olds have erectile dysfunction, which means that 70% of 70-year-olds have brain dysfunction. And so keeping your blood vessels healthy is good for your sex life and it's good for your cognitive life. So there's a whole bunch of benefits.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it can lead to like ADD and schizophrenia, I think I've read.
Low blood flow is associated with ADD, with schizophrenia, with depression, and dementia. So, this is why exercise is so important and why not being overweight is critical to your overall health.
Yeah. What would you say is the best foods to restore brain function faster if it's a bit, you know, it's a bit, you have lots of brain fog, not really, it's just not clean and functioning well. Um,
So, the first thing I would do is find foods you love that love you back. And so, colorful fruits and vegetables, 3 times more vegetables than fruit, and get as many different colors as you can because they have plant medicines or phytonutrients. Foods high in omega-3 fatty acids. So fatty fish, avocados, nuts and seeds, green leafy vegetables are just loaded with nutrients that humans need. Um, so I'm not a fan of dairy. I'm not a fan of gluten. There's an interesting study from the Mayo Clinic that people who had primarily a simple carbohydrate based diet, bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, sugar, fruit juice, had a 400% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. But people who had primarily a fat based diet had a 42% less risk of Alzheimer's disease. So I'm a fan, kill the sugar and the foods that quickly turn to sugar, colorful fruits and vegetables, high quality, sustainable, very important protein, and healthy fat, and then cook a lot with herbs and spices like garlic and oregano, rosemary. My favorite of the bunch is saffron because saffron has medicinal qualities to boost your mood, help you sexually, help you with your memory. I'm like, mood, sex, and memory. I'm going to take saffron every day.
yeah, yeah. So you've got some people. around the world that probably eat a lot more carbohydrates, not just, the standard American diet, but I don't know, like Mediterranean, it's quite carb rich, isn't it? But just
Well, I'm Lebanese. My heritage is Lebanese, and it can be with the rice dishes, but they have great salads and soups that can be really healthy for people. So it's the choices that you make. And here in the US, we supersize everything. Um, and that's a problem. Calories really do matter. I mean, the quality of your calories matter more, but the quantity matters. And in other countries that maybe eat more carbohydrates, they don't eat the same portions that we do.
right, yeah, yeah. I've been to the US and it's mad. There's so much artificial ingredients as well. Like I'd see the same bar and on the back of it, it'll say also artificial ingredients. And I'll be like, but why? Like, why? Yeah, wild.
Because it goes to the bliss point. That's why. Is they combine enough ingredients to turn dopamine on in your brain so you will not just want it once. You will want to be a repeat customer. It's insidious.
Yeah. Um, high fructose corn syrup. Um, what's your thoughts on that and how it affects the brain?
Well, I'm just not a fan of any sugar, and that just happens to be stronger. But, whether it's organic cane crystals or concentrated fruit juice or high fructose corn syrup, they're all addictive, pro-inflammatory, and will make you sick.
Would
So
you
I'm not really a fan of any of them.
would you say they are very similar to each other? Like,
I would.
yeah, right.
And one of the worst things is actually people doing something they think is helpful. So I want to get my child fruit, so I'll give them orange juice in the morning. But whenever you unwrap fructose, fruit sugar, from its fiber source, it actually turns toxic in your body. And so, for years, I thought I was a good dad because I'd give my kids apple juice in their lunchbox. And now I realize, I was an uninformed dad
Mm,
that, that is not a good drink for them.
mad. I mean, you live and you learn. It's difficult. It's so difficult, especially kids are so picky as well. But I don't want that. I like that, but I don't want that. It's like, mate, just eat that or just drink it. Um,
Well, they won't starve. And I think if you don't buy them crap, they'll get used to the healthy food you have. Exposure equals preference. But the problem is baby food is loaded with sugar, and we prime the little kids to be sick. We prime them to crave sugar. And then parents, because they don't realize your job is not to be your child's friend, your job is to be their frontal lobes until theirs develop, not until they're in their 20s. And, I have total control over the money spent in my house. And it's like we don't buy bad food. We don't buy bad food because we care about you. So if you want a Snickers bar, you got to use your own money.
mm. What sort of foods do you reckon is good for young kids, for their developing brains? Would you say exactly the same as adults, or I guess their preference might be slightly different. What maybe energy requirements for the brain could be different as well. What would you
Well,
say?
their brain is undergoing wild development, and high fat diets, healthy fat diets, are really great for developing brains.
Mhm.
So avocados, nuts and seeds, fish. My daughter, who's 18, um, just loved raw fish when she was little. And I was just so happy about that because it was great for her brain.
Mm. Would that be okay to put in like a smoothie, like nuts in a smoothie? Or,
It would be.
yeah?
That's actually a great way. I start every day with a smoothie and I make it for my wife and kids. And it's, you can make it delicious and put all sorts of nutrients in it.
Mm, mm. Some people believe that if you mix certain macronutrients together, it's not too good for blood sugar levels and stuff. But this is more nutrition and not exactly directly for the brain. But I guess don't really need to talk much into that. Um, what's your thoughts on microdosing and the brain? There's lots of, I don't know, biohackers that believe that microdosing on LSD or smart drugs are okay for the brain. Do you have any studies on small doses of some sort of drug?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I mean, they used to put cocaine in Coca Cola until they realized that was really a bad thing. We've gone through fads a lot ever since I've been a psychiatrist. And, it's like, let's do the simple things first. Let's get your diet right. Let's get you to exercise. Let's get you to not believe every stupid thing you think. Let's get you focused on what you really want and your relationships, work, money, physical, emotional, spiritual health. Let's do the right things because microdosing upsets many people's brains. We see the fallout of that at Amen clinics. And so um, it's still in its infancy. Most places here in the United States, it's illegal, which means it's not been thoroughly studied, and people will have opinions and stories on people who've been helped, but they often won't tell you about the people who've been hurt. I'm going to have to run in just a second, but
Okay.
such a joy to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing. Where can people find you? And your book is going to be available, you said the 22nd. Is that right?
So March 22nd, people can actually, there's all sorts of bonuses if they pre-order or order the book in the first week at youhappier.com. Including they'll get a bottle of Happy Saffron, my favorite supplement.
Awesome.
And they can follow me on TikTok or Instagram or learn about our clinics at Amen, like the last word in a prayer, clinics.com.
Fantastic. Dr. Raymond, thank you very much for your golden, amazing information which you provided. And I hope we get to talk again at some point
I
soon.
look forward to it, Roger.
Thank
Take
you very
care.
much. You take care. Goodbye.
Bye.